As unbelievable as it sounds, there's a real chance that the final race might never actually happen.
Over the past few days, social media has been flooded with reports claiming that Fast and Furious 11 is stuck in development hell.
The script still isn't finished. Universal reportedly refuses to approve the budget.
And Vin Diesel, according to insiders, is once again leading the studio in circles.
It sounds dramatic, so let's slow down and break everything down step by step.
Fast X didn't just end, it stopped mid-sentence. For the first time in the franchise's history, the movie ended on a massive cliffhanger. Half the main cast was seemingly killed. Dom and his son were seconds away from death at the dam. Old characters returned or were resurrected yet again.
Classic Fast and Furious chaos, and audiences immediately demanded a continuation.
The problem is that Fast X was released back in 2023. 2 full years have passed. Plenty of time to write a solid finale. But instead Fast 11 kept getting delayed.
First because of Hollywood strikes, then because of wildfires, then because of actor schedules. And speaking of schedules, right now Vin Diesel is filming Riddick 4 and actively trying to launch a sequel to The Last Witch Hunter.
Which raises an uncomfortable question. If Fast and Furious is supposedly the priority,
why does it feel like everything else comes first?
To be fair, Diesel himself made several statements this year claiming that filming would start in 2025, with a release planned for 2027.
He also publicly said that Brian O'Connor must return, because this is the final chapter, and excluding him would be impossible.
Just days ago, Diesel even posted a photo with Michelle Rodriguez, captioned "An incredible day of filming completed."
And at first glance, everything seems to suggest that Fast 11 is moving forward. But as always, the truth is in the details.
A few weeks ago, Jason Momoa openly stated that he has not seen the script for the final Fast and Furious movie.
He said he would love to return as Dante. He's excited and ready. The only problem is that no one has contacted him.
And that is huge, because Dante isn't a side villain.
He is the entire driving force of Fast X. You simply cannot remove him from the story at this stage.
Which strongly suggests that whatever Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez are filming,
it is not Fast 11. Earlier, Diesel hinted at a short prequel project focused on Dom and Letty.
They've been the core of the franchise from the very beginning, so creating a smaller side project during this long break actually makes sense. And most likely, if anything releases soon, it will be something like that. Social media-driven content or a short standalone story. But the final race still hasn't started. Originally, Fast 11 was expected in 2025.
Then the date shifted. Then it shifted again. Diesel insists the movie will arrive in 2027.
Universal, however, has gone completely silent.
And in fact, the studio has removed Fast 11 from its release calendar entirely. According to a leaked internal studio report, Fast and Furious 11 is currently on hold because there is no approved script. But that is only half the problem. The real issue is money.
Fast X reportedly had a budget of $340 million, and while it did make money, its domestic box office performance was the lowest for the franchise since 2006. Fast and Furious used to be unstoppable. Fast 5 turned it into a global phenomenon. Parts 7 and 8 made over $1 billion each.
But after that, interest started to decline, and even Jason Momoa's over-the-top villain couldn't fully save Fast X.
Sources claim that the current draft of Fast 11 would cost around $250 million, while Universal wants no more than $200 million.
Mainly because cast salaries are eating the budget alive.
Vin Diesel reportedly earns $25 million per film.
Supporting actors get anywhere from $2 to $10 million. And with potential returns of Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot,
actors' salaries alone could reach $100 million.
The studio proposed cutting costs by limiting filming locations,
reducing character roles, or removing some characters entirely.
Actors unsurprisingly aren't happy, and as of now, no final cast deals are signed.
While the script itself is being actively cut down. Producer Neil Moritz recently said that the team's only goal is to make the finale satisfying both creatively and financially.
And Diesel has repeatedly claimed that Fast 11 will return to Los Angeles,
focus on street racing, and go back to the franchise's roots. But let's be honest, this doesn't sound like a bold creative choice.
It sounds like a budget compromise, smaller scale,
fewer locations, lower costs, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Fast and Furious didn't stumble by accident. It escalated itself into a corner. More stars, bigger explosions,
characters coming back from the dead, and yes, going to space. Even Universal's own leadership later admitted that some creative decisions went too far.
And at this point, the franchise is closer to science fiction than street racing.
Insiders hope production can begin next spring, which would still allow a 2027 release, but nothing is guaranteed.
Spin-offs like Hobbs and Shaw 2, a female-led project,
and even a Fast and Furious series have all been discussed and quietly stalled, because right now, Universal can't even decide how to end the main story. To sum it all up, Fast and Furious 11 hasn't meaningfully moved forward since 2023. There is a real possibility that the grand finale will either be heavily scaled down or never happen in the form fans expect. Vin Diesel wants an epic send-off, Universal wants a financially safe one, and somewhere between those two visions, the final race is still stuck at the starting line.
So the question is yours. Should Vin Diesel finally hit the brakes? Or does Fast and Furious still have one last billion-dollar race left in it?
And remember, nothing is more important than family,
even when it turns its back on you. And here's where things get even more interesting.
Because while Fast 11 is stuck in limbo, the franchise itself hasn't actually stopped moving.
It has just changed direction behind the scenes.
Universal clearly understands that the main saga is risky right now, too expensive, too crowded with characters, and too dependent on a finale that needs to satisfy 25 years of build-up. That's why insiders believe the studio is quietly shifting focus towards safer side projects, smaller scale stories that don't require every major actor to return at once.
This is exactly where Hobbs enters the picture again.
Dwayne Johnson's return in Fast X wasn't just fan service. It was a test, a way to measure audience reaction and see if his presence could reignite hype without committing to the full ensemble.
And judging by online engagement, that test worked. Which is why many believe that before Fast 11 ever hits production, we could see Hobbs and Shaw 2, or a Hobbs-centered spin-off designed to bridge the gap, reintroduce characters, and most importantly,
make money without carrying the weight of the main finale. This would also explain why Fast 11 feels frozen while other projects quietly stay in development. A spin-off doesn't need Dom, Letty, Brian, and the entire family together. It can be filmed faster, cheaper, and marketed as an event rather than an obligation.
There are even rumors that Universal is considering using these spin-offs to softly reshape the ending of the main saga, testing story ideas, tones, and audience reactions before locking the final script.
If that's true, then Fast 11 isn't delayed because it's failing. It's delayed because the studio is afraid to get it wrong.
After all, once the final race is over, there's no going back.
And that's the real reason everything feels so uncertain right now. Not because Fast and Furious is dead, but because ending it properly might be harder than keeping it alive.
And until Universal figures out whether the future belongs to Dom, Hobbs, or an entirely new generation, the engine will keep running, just without crossing the finish line yet.